Assalamu alaikum, comrades. This video might be a little bit different. Lately, I've been feeling very uninspired and burnt out and tired. You may have noticed it's been a while since I've posted anything on YouTube. By the time I've met all of my obligations of posting short form content on other platforms, I just feel like I haven't had the drive or energy to do anything long form. Since the beginning of Ramadan, I've been working on one video, which I at this point, I don't think it'll ever be up. Even though I love the topic and it's so interesting, I was working on a video about some documents from the Soviet government detailing one particular year of Ramadan in the 1940s, with lots of interesting information about the celebration of Eid and how many people were fasting and what was going on. And it was a wonderful snapshot of Ramadan in the Soviet Union, but every time I sit down to film it, it doesn't go well, and I can't bring myself to edit what I have. And I think I've just been creating long-form content in a way that I don't particularly find interesting. I know a lot of people expect me to sit down and talk super academically and have lots of information and facts and have it make sense, and I don't know, you know what I'm saying, but I haven't really felt like doing that long form. It's been really hard for me to articulate something very long and meaningful and at the same time enjoyable to watch. I think maybe it's just because I'm tired from fasting, or maybe it's like my ADHD brain just can't hang on to certain topics for long periods of time, long enough to work on anything substantial. Or maybe it's just because I felt like I've been sucked of creativity all this time. I've been working on posting Soviet history online for like 3 years now, and I'm just really burnt out with the way that I've been doing it and the way that I'm received, I guess. Like, I can spend hours and hours on making something as nuanced, academic, full of sources, all that, and I'll still get hundreds of people being pretty awful to me, be it because talking about history in general on the internet brings some of the most toxic people ever, talking about the Soviet Union and communism, even more so. Being a woman talking about those topics, oh, that angers a lot of people even more, where they have to prove they know more than me, accuse me of being a fraud, add insignificant details so they feel good about themselves as a man or something. I don't know. And then add on top of that I'm a Muslim who covers their body. So what's the point of watching me when you can't see what I look like, huh? That also enrages a whole other group of people. And at the end of the day, no matter how hard I work on something or create something that I think is how it should be, the backlash that I get is just like exhausting and sometimes not very worth it. So that's been preventing me from doing the normal kind of educational long-form content that I had been doing on this channel. And maybe you've realized that I start series like, oh, I'm so excited, I'm going to talk about women in the Soviet Union, and then I just like lose motivation, or I get stuck on all the backlash and critique of what went wrong in that video that I was excited to do a series on. So I thought that maybe I should do something a little different and maybe just take you along with me as I do things throughout the week, the kinds of stuff that I come across, the interesting topics I become invested in, books that I pick up, all that kind of stuff, because I feel like, as I mentioned before, I've really lost my creativity and drive, and I'm so used to doing things in one certain way, and I'm so worried about what people will think if I don't act professional or if I share too much of my personality. I just want to try something new. And maybe you're not interested in me as a person, but the core of who I am really revolves around, well, the core of my life is Islam. The second core is Soviet history. So regardless of what I do or get up to, my mind is always thinking about that and referencing that, and that's going to be the core of what I find myself doing. And getting so caught up in performing a certain way and creating certain kinds of topics and making videos, it's been preventing me from enjoying parts of my life that I used to enjoy a lot more. Like, I'm going out less. Sometimes because of the backlash I receive online, I get scared to go outside. There's days where I'm like, oh, I don't want to go to this part of the city because recently someone who lives there sent me a tweet saying that they're gonna... I get scared sometimes because of the backlash that I get. Man, even like when we got our cat, I was so afraid to go into the house of the people selling her to us. I was afraid that they weren't gonna sell it to me if they knew who I was. It sounds crazy, but in the end, they actually ended up like interrogating my husband because of where he's from, to like gauge his politics, which he lied about, just to sell us a Siberian kitten. It affects my everyday life. I don't want it to. So I need to change some things. I want to do things that I enjoy. I want to be a bit more creative. And when it comes to this long form content, I just want to branch out a bit more. Also, look how fluffy Dusia's gotten. Aww. So what do I gotta do today? Today I gotta make a short form video for Lennon's birthday that's coming up. That will be posted on Redstream. Most of you have noticed that I'm working with Redstream now, which is formerly Redfish. Now I'm getting ready to film, which means it's time for red lipstick. Good enough. Then I was going to make a YouTube video all about this awful book that I recently picked up for $2 on eBay. I'm kind of on this quest to read everything written about Muslims in the Soviet Union in the English language. This is one of those books, Crescent in a Red Sky, The Future of Islam in the Soviet Union by Amir Tahari. And oh my goodness, it's awful. This guy really, really upset me with what he was saying, just blatant lies and misconstruing things and wording things in a way that are intentionally confusing. And while I'm enraged, do I want to make an entire like 15-20 minute video about it? Maybe not. Maybe I'll make it into a short form video because I haven't been making as many short form videos for my own channel, like on TikTok, I mean. I need to tell you about this awful book that I just read. There we go. We have our answer. That's who wrote this book, and I don't think it's a good one. This past weekend, my little sibling was visiting, and we went to SakuraCon, an anime convention that I've gone to every single year since 2006 or 7. And my goodness, it also made me realize, oh, I haven't been enjoying these other things I enjoy. I mean, I stopped cosplaying when I started wearing hijab, since my favorite characters and the kinds of stuff that I'm into in that regard is hard to hijabify. But I have gotten some ideas. Anyways, that was also a big wake-up call of me just like not doing all the things that I enjoy and venturing out enough and spending free time doing more mindless things, which I think is okay. We need to like do mindless things and consume fun content unrelated to our work. It's healthy to do that. It's fine. And it doesn't make you a degenerate like people always say whenever I mention anime. Oh, if you only knew what I was actually into in that regard. It's mostly gay. Here I'm trying to find the books that I got because yes, I went to an anime convention and what I came out of it with were 2 Soviet history books. Ah, here's the other one. One of my best friends was working the Japanime booth and she had picked up some books for me at the local like Seattle Public Library book sale that they do once a month. And the first one is Soviet Army Operations. This was made in the 1970s, so it's not really the era that I'm particularly interested in, but it's a really interesting book. The illustrations and the graphs are super useful. I love like the design. The structure of military is something that I'm always quite confused on, and it changes throughout history. Some of you might know that I'm really interested in like the map makers, the cartographers, or the topographic units as they are often referred to. So I'm interested in reading this and seeing if they mention that. It's a cool book to have. The second book is Soviet Politics at Home and Abroad by Frederick L. Schumann. Now this was written, I believe, in 1949. Look at the embossing on it. Can you see how the light reflects? Who knows what the soft cover looked like. It isn't a great book. There's a lot of things that are a bit like, why do you explain it like that? But he does have a wonderful summary of religion in the Soviet Union. And as I mentioned, how I'm always looking for books on Islam, I'm also always looking for general overviews and timelines up to the point that the book is written of how they are viewing religion and religious practice in the Soviet Union. And this one didn't disappoint. Let me read it to you. Freedom of religion, or lack thereof, in the USSR has attracted particular attention in the West. Marxist materialism, combined with the close identification between Tsarism and the Orthodox priesthood, accounts for the agnosticism of all Bolsheviks and serves to explain the original communist attitude towards institutionalized Christianity. So I like that it gives us sort of like background, the kinds of things that play into why anti-religious views might exist, the context of Christianity under the Tsar, the debates on whether religion can or can't be materialist, or if it's anti-materialist. That's a whole discussion that's always been happening since the beginning. I have my own views, but I can talk about that some other time. He gives a little history, and then he says, by 1936, the party line had shifted. The new constitution re-enfranchised the clergy, though still guaranteeing freedom of anti-religious propaganda as contrasted with freedom of religious worship. The diminution. Sometimes I come across words that I don't know how to say out loud, so feel free to call me an idiot down below. I just have never heard it said out loud, never had to say it out loud. Of the campaign for universal godlessness was reflected in the decline of membership in the League to 7 million by 1939 to 3 million by 1940. By the latter year, there were 8,338 churches, synagogues, and mosques registered throughout the Union, compared with the almost 250,000 in the United States for a population only 60% as large. 58,442 clergymen, 30,000 registered groups licensed to meet for religious purposes. On June 26, 1940, the 6-day week was abolished in favor of the traditional 7-day week, with Sunday as a day of rest for all and of worship for those so inclined. So even though they are critiquing, like, there's more religious institutions in the US, which has less of a population, these are still really useful statistics of how many clergymen there were, how many mosques, synagogues there were, and the notion of creating a 7-day week with a Sunday rest. So this does show that at least in 1949, by 1949, things had really, really loosened. Ultimately, in the history of the Soviet Union, it is the 1930s, late 1920s through the 1930s that is the era of religious repression, and there's context and reason for that. I just find this little summary in 1949 a useful insight to what people were thinking and saying, and the reality of religious practice in the Soviet Union at that point. So those are my most recent book acquisitions. Today's been a bit slow. Ramadan's really kicking my butt, so I've just been keeping it easy today, and I'm scanning things for my site. So that's all I've done today, really. Which one shall I scan next? I like how these all came from the same guy. I mean, this is like a 100-year-old address, so I'm sure it's not right, but I'm so sorry, Alex. And then it was Friday, and I'm going to Friday prayer, which I go to every week. For Muslim women, it's not mandatory, but I find great benefit in the khutbah and learning. And my favorite babushka from Kabardino-Balkaria was there, which makes me happy. And afterwards, we went to the public market to pick up some fruit. Yeah, very local Seattle thing to do, going to the market to pick up fruit. And we also stopped by the used bookstore that's downstairs at the public market. There's some interesting books there. I ended up picking this up, and yeah, look at that. Imperial, but oh, this one's awful. I highly recommend going to this bookstore on the third level down at Pike's Place. It's pretty nice. Also found this, look, .yu, Yugoslavia, holy shit. But spring is definitely here in Seattle, and it was very, very nice out. But this is what I picked up. I don't have this version of the Manifesto and the 60s version of Beowulf. I have a small obsession with Beowulf, sorry. Also, this is inside that edition of the Manifesto, and look, it's the original first page. That's so cool. I love it. I also released these stickers on my website. Oh my gosh, I love them. I had a lot of leftover ones. These were my rejected designs. I gave one of them to someone at a concert, actually. But yeah, love these. I hope you enjoy them too. I just received this in the mail tonight, the USSR Information Bulletin from March 17th, 1948. It's the Women's Day edition. I have received so much mail of historic documents and packages that I have lots of complaints. This had like contact cement on it to shut it close, and it got stuck on this because there was nothing protecting it, and I thought I was gonna ruin the back image, but I got it off without any trouble. But I have so many problems with like sticky stuff ruining my documents as they come out of the package because they're not protected by the sellers who don't care about them. But this is great. In fact, let's just look at the first page. Principles of Lenin and Stalin on women's equality. Look at that. All sorts of interesting stuff. Now this is an article by Zenata Troitskaya. I did a video about her over a year ago on TikTok and Instagram. One of the first female train drivers, and this is a whole article about women working in the metro, and it's really, really cool. This is my outfit for the Voltaire concert. I actually didn't really know what to wear, so this is just how I dress. and I wanted to wear something that was warm enough I could walk to the venue, but not too warm to where I'd overheat at the show. Always representing. I don't actually know what Voltaire thinks of communism. He was born in Cuba. So that concert ran like 2.5 hours over its intended time, which was terrible for me because I was fasting, which meant I did nothing the next day. Also makes me feel like I'm getting old. But today I received another book in the mail. Ah yes, another book about Islam and the Soviet Union. Again, just a random book I found on Abe Books. Very, very cheap. Didn't know anything about it. There's nothing about it online. Decided on a whim to pick it up. An old decommissioned library book, my favorite. Yes, here we go. I believe it's 60s. Let's see, 67, yes. Translated from French. I have another book that is fantastic about Muslims in the Soviet Union that I cannot find in person or like physically in English, but I have the French version. Let me grab it. This one. I believe like Internet Archive has the English version of it, but I wanted a physical copy. Also, that cover art is terrible. But this one's great because there's a lot of great statistics and images in it that like other books don't have. So I think, again, I don't speak French, but you know, I can translate the graphs and the commentary on the images like pretty easily, but it was worth it for like this. I forget the English title of that one. What does that translate to? Y'all saw it, like the star and the red crescent. They all sound like that. But this book is actually so good, and I'm surprised I've never seen it mentioned before. It's just really good. I always mention my favorite book by Shireen Akiner, which is like an ethnographic book about the different people groups. This book has a lot of that, where they go into like the history and like the cultural background, which is so integral to understanding Islam and Muslims in the Soviet Union that most books that critique it don't even go into. But it's just fantastic. Communism and Muslim Religion. Yeah, this is a really good book. Very neutral and full of really useful information. I'm also now using my stickers as bookmarks. It's fitting. I thought this was really interesting, a quote from the Great Soviet Encyclopedia. Like all religions, Islam has played a reactionary role as in society, being a weapon in the hands of the exploiting classes and an instrument for spiritual oppression of the workers and for the subjugation of peoples of the East by foreign colonialists. Very interesting quote here. I love that. It's just, yeah, fascinating. I just think of all the quotes they could have chosen or definitions from the Great Soviet Encyclopedia, using the one that shows Islam being used like against Muslims, against the working people, not by the hands of Muslims under Islam, but as a weapon and a tool of colonialists. So another thing I've been trying to do this Ramadan is work on this book idea that I've had for a long time, that I've been collecting sources for 3 years, which is a book, you know, about Islam and it being, you know, compatible with communism and my perspectives on that, and also using examples from the Soviet Union. I finally think I found like an organizational way that it makes sense. It was really hard for me to figure out what exactly I wanted to focus on and like the order of operations per se, but I'm so insecure about my writing that like I was also expecting that this Ramadan I'd be able to focus on that like the majority of Ramadan, and I've hardly had the capacity. They say that fasting makes your brain work better, but it just makes me dehydrated, and I'm just a mushroom in all reality, and I just become a dried mushroom and can't do anything. And over the years I've had multiple book ideas that I've tried to create, and I never follow through. I'll write like a third of the book or a significant, you know, outline, and then I don't complete it. This one I really want to complete because it's about things that I get asked, you know, about every single day. And I don't know, I'm really insecure about my writing, and I keep getting really discouraged. Whenever I write articles or things and submit them, they're always rejected. They're always, because of the content and what I focus on and the way I choose to portray things, I'm sure is the reason. Or I'm just a terrible, terrible writer. I think I'm good at speaking, but something happens when I write and it's not great. Even when I dictate. I don't know. Why I'm saying this is because I want you to encourage me. If you remember, when you comment on my stuff, just remind me, like, hey, Izdihar, finish that book, work on that book. I want to read a book from you. I'd appreciate that. Anyways, comrades, I'm going to leave it here. Just thank you for letting me take you along a little bit with my week and what I get up to, even though I'm a bit dead, as I mentioned, this Ramadan. I just needed to, put something out here, talk about things, get into the motions of posting long form content again, but I just didn't have it in me to do something like I've done in the past. So I hope you found this a little bit interesting. If not, it's okay. Maybe you learned a little bit more about me. Maybe you saw something you find interesting, but I just wanted to put something up, and I wanted to explore the avenue of doing a bit of vlogging of sorts. I hope you all have a great day. And if you're fasting, I hope you've had a great fast, successful fast. I hope your fast is accepted, and Ramadan Mubarak.